Welcome to the London School of English Live. Our session today is on business English and 20 key expressions for negotiating in English. And our expert trainer, John Dyson, will share practical tips and business English vocabulary for negotiating effectively. You will discover new expressions you can use, and you will also participate in interactive quizzes. A few words about our business English courses. We deliver them face-to-face in London and online, in groups and individual sessions. The training is focused on your needs and objectives, and you can always contact us to find the most suitable business English training for you. You can find out more on our website, which I will show shortly here. It's www.londonschool.com, and you can always contact us, and we will be happy to help with any of your questions. Here's our email, and there's also phone number on our website. Now, without further ado, John, over to you for the main content.
Thank you, Olga. And before I start, hello, Pallavi, Jorge, Naima. Welcome to the live stream this afternoon. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another live stream from the London School of English. My name is John Dyson, and I'm one of the business English trainers here at the school. I'd like to thank you very much for joining us today on our live stream. So the subject today is 20 key expressions for negotiating, one of our business English series. So we're talking about negotiation, which of course is the art or the science, if you like, of coming to an agreement when you start from an initially different situation. So when we talk about negotiation, well, we've said just what it is, but in fact, it is something that we do every day in many ways. And even we non-experts, and I categorize myself as a non-expert, better at it than we think. For example, when I think back to when my two daughters were very young, I used to have to negotiate with them all the time around the dinner table. So it was along the lines of, if you eat your vegetables, then you can have an ice cream after dinner. If you don't eat your vegetables, you can't. And then my daughters would come back and say, well, if we eat half our vegetables, can we still have an ice cream? So that is a form of negotiation, if you think about it. So what do we need when we negotiate? What skills are we looking at? I'd say hard and soft skills. And when we talk about hard skills, we're talking about maths, the capacity to work well with numbers, because you may be dealing with numbers and prices and offers and things. Strategy, thinking ahead. Thinking on your feet, the capacity to produce information exactly when you need to. And of course, you need a good memory. Now, hard skills, you could say, well, these are things you can train yourself for. The other kind of skills are soft skills. And I would say soft skills are less measurable in a way, but equally important, if not more. So you've got concepts or values like courtesy, trust, honesty, flexibility, adaptability, transparency, and of course, social skills, interpersonal skills. So I think all of these are very key, really, really. And when we talk about language, the words which come out of our mouths, we're talking about the use of language which is appropriate in register. Now, register refers to how suitable or acceptable a certain kind of language is in a certain context. So I've got a couple of examples here. At the beginning of a relatively, formal negotiation, when you meet somebody and you're going to try and reach a business deal with them, if we can see two expressions, one of which is not really appropriate. Hi, mate, how you doing? The register for that is extremely informal. So that's informal register, not really the best way to approach a fairly formal negotiation. How do you do? Pleased to meet you. I'm John Dyson. Much better, much more appropriate for the context. Now, I'm sure you know that already, but it's worth pointing out that register is an important factor. Your choice of language is very important in negotiations. Right, so let's move on. Negotiation is a process. So we'll look at that process chronologically as far as possible. So what I'm going to try and do during this live stream is take it from the beginning of the context or the situation, the negotiation situation, towards the end. So what do we need to do? What kind of expressions can we use at each of these different stages or phases? So to begin with, number one, here come the 20 expressions. In fact, you get more than 20, because in each number I've put in 2 or 3 different examples. Hello, Diana. Nice to see you again. And Andrea, it's very nice to have lots of people joining our live stream. So number one is, I've called it first of all, first things first. So you will be using expressions. Let's imagine that the person is visiting you, then you're going to say, welcome to Barcelona, for example. Welcome to London. Is this your first time here? Have you been here before? Is your hotel good? Or you could say, if you've met the person before, you could say, it's good to meet you again. It's good to see you again. And using the person's name makes them feel more welcome. Hello, Ali from Somalia. Nice to have you with us again. Another thing is, remember, when you're inviting somebody, or if they've come to your office to see you, then you may want to make them feel at home. Can I get you anything to drink, for example? Can I get you plus whatever it may be? Can I get you a drink? Can I get you a coffee? So those kinds of expressions, and they may seem very simple, and they are very simple. But I think they're a key part of establishing a positive dynamic. And that, I think, is really, really fundamental to make sure that the negotiation can start with the right atmosphere and has more chance, perhaps, of creating an atmosphere where there will be collaboration rather than competition and suspicion, let's say. So let's move on to number 2. And number 2 is establishing a process. Now, you can call it a process or you can call it a procedure. What's the difference between the two? I would say a process is basically a set of actions which occur one after the other. A procedure is the way that set of actions should occur. Now, people have very different ideas about how you should approach a negotiation. It isn't obvious to everyone, so it may be useful to have the kind of language that poses these questions and allows you both, if you are two, to agree on the best structure for your negotiation. So we've got examples like, how shall we proceed? How shall we go about this? This meaning the negotiation. How shall we proceed? How should we go about this? So the verb proceed comes from the noun procedure. Another example is, how would you like to structure our conversation? So then it feels like it's a collaborative process. It isn't you dictating the way in which this process happens. And of course, you could ask the question, can we or shall we agree on a process? And that could be, let's first of all listen to each other. Let's establish the purpose. Let's, once we've heard each other's initial positions, then we can go on to negotiate and bargain. But it's good to have a structure. So I think it's an important factor in deciding how to run the negotiation. Okay, moving on to number 3. This, of course, is also very, very important, which is establishing purpose and objective. Yes, you have to have a purpose. You have to have a desirable outcome. You have to have an objective. Hello, Frank. Welcome back. Your objective presumably is to reach an agreement. So when you're establishing purpose, one of the things you could say is, okay, let's look at our shared objectives today in more detail. And that could be, we have to agree on a price, we have to agree on delivery, we have to agree on payment terms, we have to agree on a discount. So you may be looking at a series of different elements of the negotiation, because it's very unusual that you will only be negotiating about one particular thing. If you're negotiating on price, then you're likely to be negotiating on how you're going to pay and when you're going to pay. So yes, establishing purpose and objective, just so that you are operating from the same song sheet, as we say. Number 4, again, this is more a soft skill, and it isn't so much a way of driving the process forward. It's simply a way of showing goodwill and positive intent. Goodwill and positive intent, very important for a negotiation. So what that means, for example, is when you say, I hope we can reach a win-win result. I hope we can reach a win-win result or a win-win outcome. And another term for win-win, because that's a relatively informal expression, another expression we could use is mutually satisfactory. Mutually satisfactory outcome. Okay, so outcome is result, satisfactory is clear, mutually means for both sides. Yeah, I'm sure we can reach a mutually satisfactory agreement. So you are showing positive intent there. And number 5 links in some way to showing positive intent, which is to focus or focusing on shared interests. Because you may have different positions initially, but at the end of the day, you both want to reach an agreement. You're not doing this negotiation without any intention of reaching an agreement. So one way that you can use language to say that is, I'm sure we can establish some common ground. We can establish some common ground. Okay, so there are some things which we agree about already. So rather than focusing immediately on the differences, I think it's a good idea to focus on the similarities, the shared objectives, the things you can agree on, before moving on to the rather more difficult areas of the things you don't necessarily agree on. Number 6 comes back to, again, this issue of soft skills. This is what I would call courtesy and listening orientation. And when I say listening orientation, I'm focusing on something that we here at the London School of English think is extremely important, which is active listening, showing the other person that you are listening attentively to what they're saying. So, for example, if you say, all right, I'm not going to start, I won't start first, I will say, please put forward or outline your position. And then I'll outline ours, and we can see where the differences are. And this is really important. And you have to resist the temptation to interrupt if the other person says something that you cannot agree to. Let them finish. Listen to them. Listen to all of it. Don't make any judgments. Don't try and present counter arguments. Simply listen. Because then you know from the beginning of the negotiation exactly where they are. What is their position on the different issues? And then you ask them for the courtesy of doing the same to you, listening. Because once you've been transparent about it like that, then, as you say, we can see where the differences are, and you can see where the areas are that you need to focus most on. Okay, and that also, this is when we say listening orientation, this is also a question of acknowledging the other party. So when you acknowledge, it means you send a signal to them that you understand and recognize their message. Yeah, which is rather like, for example, saying, okay, right, yep, I see, I understand your concerns. In this case, concerns means worries. Yeah, that's clear to me. Okay, so and you can paraphrase what they say, but I think the most important thing is you are showing that you recognize and you're listening to what they're saying. So it's very important to acknowledge the other person, because otherwise maybe they will get the impression that you're not really listening closely. So let's move on to number 7. Now we get down to what many people do straight away in a negotiation, which is start bargaining. Now, imagine all of you may know what the word to bargain, the verb to bargain, means. Basically, if you've ever been overseas to certain countries and you go to a market, you can bargain about the price you are going to pay for a product. So they will give you a price, the price which is too high, and you say, no, I'll pay you that much. And they say, no, it's difficult for me, I'll offer you this much. And you say, well, let's see if we can agree. So bargaining is going back and forth and trying to reach agreement. And when I say hypothesizing, what that means is, well, it means using a conditional sentence. So if we have an example, I would be able to offer you a discount if you bought a larger number of our products, for example. So we often use this, which is the second conditional sentence, to present what we might call a hypothetical or an imaginary proposal. Now, if the person says, okay, then it becomes a real proposal. You say, okay, if you will buy more and I will offer you a discount. But this is a way of, if you like, it's a way of bargaining. It's a way of presenting a proposal without being concrete about that proposal, without it being certain. What you're doing is testing to see how far the other person will agree to what you've said. So moving on to number 8, again, a really, really important part of any important communication scenario, where it is very important that you understand each other and that you understand the detail of what the other person is saying, is checking and confirming. So at different stages during the negotiation, you may say, okay, let's go over, summarize what we have agreed so far. So again, you have a positive orientation. We'll go over what we have agreed so far. So that's a good way of, if it's reaching a tough position, the negotiation, remind them that you have actually managed to reach some agreement on some areas. So you could just say to go over, you could say to summarize, and you can say to recap on what we have agreed so far. Number 9. Now, this is a picture of a chessboard. And it's the term I've used here is to avoiding stalemate. Stalemate is what happens in a game of chess when you reach a point where neither player can move. Because if one or the other moves, they will lose the game. So you might reach a point where you say, well, I don't think it's possible to get a result here because I'm not going to move and you're not going to move. So we might as well stop the game. Now, in a negotiation, if you say we have reached stalemate, what it really means is you've reached a point where you can't really move forward because neither of you are making a proposal or making an acceptable proposal. So what can you say in that situation? For me, there's a simple solution. And the example shows it. I think we should leave this point and come back to it later. Because sometimes the stalemate may be over one particular point where you simply can't agree. So why don't you leave this point and come back to it later or return to it later? So that is a way of dealing with that momentary disagreement, is to say, okay, we'll talk about that when we've talked about other things. So you can leave this point. Another verb that is often used is let's park this point or this issue and come back to it later. So number 9, avoiding stalemate. Let's move on to number 10. And again, number 10, it's again about acknowledging the other party. The word party is something we often use when we're talking about negotiation. It means the person or organization represented. in the negotiation. And I suppose in a conventional negotiation, you have two parties, but it's possible to have more than two parties. So acknowledging the other party is, when you're about to explain something, is to say to them, please interrupt me if you want to clarify anything. So it's rather similar, if you like, it's rather similar to a presentation, where you might say in your presentation, please interrupt me if you want to clarify anything. But I think it's useful for you to say that, to verbalize that, so that the person feels comfortable interrupting you, because you have pre-invited them, if you like. Please interrupt me if you want to clarify anything, and I'll be happy to explain it again. Another piece of language that we use, which we saw a little earlier on, is I understand your concerns. So I think sometimes what you want to acknowledge the way the other party may feel about your proposal. They may not feel very comfortable with it. They may feel they don't have the authority to do it. They may feel that it's based on complete trust rather than anything else. In which case, if you say, I understand your concerns, it's similar to say, I can feel what you're feeling. I understand that you may feel a little worried about something. So I understand your concerns, but, and then you can try and say something to reassure them. Okay, we've looked at 10 different areas, and we're going to have a quick quiz. So you need, all the people in the live stream, you need to be ready, because I'm going to show you a sentence. And in this sentence, it's not quite complete, and you have a missing word. And what you have to try and do is tell me what the missing word is. And they are all expressions we've seen in the first part of this live stream. So the first letter of the missing word is given. So here we go. There are 5. Here's the first one. Can we agree on a before we start? Can we agree on a before we start? If you know, then please write it in the chat and send it to me across the airwaves, across cyberspace. Yeah. Oh, Pallavi, you're asking what's my Pallavi? My name is John Dyson. Yes, that's my name. Okay, so what's the missing word here? Going to give you another couple of seconds, see if anybody can come in with the answer. Yes, well done, Andrea. The word is procedure. I mean, you could actually say procedure or process. I think both of them. But I think if you're saying the way we should do it, then it's procedure. Okay, let's look at the next sentence. The next sentence is, of course, I your concerns. I your concerns. Okay, well done, Naima. You got that right as well. Now, in this case, I think this one is pretty easy, actually. You couldn't use another word, which is, I appreciate your concerns. I can see your concerns. But in this case, we used a particular word, which is, Naima, well done. I understand your concerns. I understand. Well done, Naima. Good one. So let's move on to, thank you, Ali Abdi, and thank you, Pallavi. Well done. Let's move on to C. So sentence C is, I'll our position so you can see what our requirements are. I'll our position so you can see what our requirements are. So what do you think is the missing word there? It's a word which means the same as to summarize, to describe, to indicate. And the word we have, oh, you have Frank. I can see you have, yes, you have a delay, so you can't quite keep up with giving these answers. But Frank, I'm sure you know the correct answers. You've been with us for several weeks, so I think you're used to these things. But so don't worry about it if you can't get your answers in quick enough. Okay, so what do you think the answer is? I'll our position. I'm going to give you the answer. And the answer is outline. Yeah, I'll outline our position so you can see what our requirements are. Okay. Yeah, Ali Abdi, you could use the word recap, but I've used the first letter as O. So the word I was thinking about and the word I used in the in the stream earlier on was to outline. Okay, D. Hello, Joanna. To see you again. To see you again. Okay, and I'm going to go through this a little bit quicker. So I'm looking at the time and it's flashing by. So I'm pleased to see you again. Pleased to see you again. You could also use the word delighted to see you again. Okay, moving on to E. The sentence here is, I'm sure we can reach a agreement. In other words, a win-win agreement. I'm sure we can reach a agreement. So that means something where we're both happy. Something where we're both happy. Yeah, okay, Jorge, well done. The first word is mutually. And the second word? Yeah, well done, Andrea. But there's two words here. One is mutually, and the other one is, okay, close, Ali Abdi, mutually. And the second word, can anybody give me the second word? How are we doing? Satisfactory. So the two words need to go together. Mutually satisfactory. I win, you win. We're both happy. Now, that's a mutually satisfactory agreement. So that's quite a formal expression, but it sums up perfectly what you want the outcome of any negotiation to be. Both sides are happy. Well done, Jorge. Mutually satisfactory. Okay, I'm going to move on to part two of the stream now. We'll look at number 11. So number 11 is making proposals. Now, there are lots and lots of different ways of making proposals. So what I've done is say, well, I've used the second conditional again. So in the first example, we say, we might be able to help you if you could. Okay, so for example, we might be able to give you a discount if you could order a larger amount of products, or if you could put a repeat order in there. I'm using very specific business examples here. And the next example I've put in is we can agree, or we agree, as long as, or provided that you are willing to, and then you follow it with whatever you want. So basically what you're saying there is, yeah, that's okay, as long as, and this is another word which we use to express condition, sort of limiting condition. Yeah, we can agree as long as, or provided that, you are willing to give us a better price, for example. So that's a kind of making a proposal, if you like. And of course, you can also use the verb to propose. I propose, this is my proposal. I propose that I offer you $20 per unit, for example. Okay, and number 12. Number 12 is what we would call a firm conditional commitment. Well, a firm commitment means we will do it. A firm conditional agreement is we will agree if you. So that is using the if plus the present. If you give us a discount, we will agree to order a larger number of products. And we have an idiomatic expression which we can use in English for this particular scenario, which is you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. So if you feel that you could use an expression like that, basically what it means is if you give me something, I will give you something of equal value. So if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Yeah, you help me, I'll help you. Moving on to number 13. It says moving. This is another really important part of negotiation, because without it, you're not going to reach an agreement. Moving your position to reach a compromise. Now, a compromise is not the same as a commitment. A commitment means a firm promise. A compromise means moving your position closer to the other person's position, and the other person needs to do the same with you so that you can meet in the middle. So an example of language you can use would be to say, we can concede on that point. We will concede, or we will make a concession on that point. Or you can also say we are willing, and this is a really important verb as well, to be willing. We are willing to compromise. We are willing to reach a compromise. Yeah, so that shows positive intent. It's going back to positive intent. Okay, moving on to number 14. Now you've agreed to compromise, but you may decide that you want to share that compromise equally, because it seems fair in a way that if I compromise, you compromise the same distance, then we are both losing or winning in a way equally. So there are two expressions which are really useful in this context. Yeah, absolutely right, Jorge. You put compromises when both sides win. That is, they concede and they agree. Yes, that's exactly what it is. Now, if you compromise and say, okay, we make equal sacrifice, then we use the expression, let's split the difference. Let's split the difference. Let's meet halfway. Now, what does that mean? So, for example, if I am the buyer and I want to pay £100 and you are the seller and you want to sell for £120, if I say, let's split the difference, let's say £110, yeah, which is £10 less than you want as the buyer, and it's £10 more than I want to pay as the seller. So let's split the difference. And it can be quite an effective way of reaching an agreement. The other expression we use is we can meet halfway. Yeah, we can meet halfway. We can meet in the middle. Yeah. So let's split the difference and we can meet halfway, or let's meet halfway. Both useful expressions. Now, number 15, if we move on to number 15, then yeah, this could be, of course, it can happen in negotiation, very often does, is that you reject an offer. You have to reject an offer, or you have to clarify the boundaries of what you are prepared to go, your limits. So, for example, you could say, I'm afraid that's out of the question. And out of the question means impossible. Impossible. Yes, Pallavi, just going back to what Pallavi is writing and say, does it mean equality? It does mean equality. If we're referring back to the previous one, let's split the difference, let's meet halfway, then yes, it means you both make equal sacrifices. You both move equally to get closer to each other. Okay, coming back to this one, so yeah, let's split the difference, let's meet halfway. So clarifying unfinished, rejecting an offer or clarifying boundaries. I said, I'm afraid that's out of the question. Now, if you just say, that's out of the question, that sounds rather strong. So if you say, I'm afraid, or sorry, but, or unfortunately, it makes the negative message a little less brutal, a little less direct. So we've got, I'm afraid that's out of the question. Sorry, but that's out of the question. Or another example, unfortunately, that isn't acceptable to us. So I think when you're expressing a strong degree of disagreement or opposition to somebody's idea, I think using words like unfortunately, I'm afraid, sorry, but, or I'm sure you understand, John, but that's out of the question. Rather than simply saying, no, that's not acceptable. No, that's out of the question. It just sounds a little bit too brutal, as I say. Okay, number 16. Let's move on to number 16. So number 16 is what I've called clarifying unfinished business. So if you remember a few of these expressions back in this live stream, we had, let's leave this until later. Let's come back to this later. Right. So you have to remind the other person that this is an outstanding point. It is a point we have not completed. It is an issue we have not completed. So in English, outstanding has two meanings. One meaning is not finished, not completed. So you can have an outstanding point. You could have an outstanding bill, which means a bill you haven't paid. And the other meaning of outstanding is excellent, fantastic. and it doesn't mean excellent or fantastic in this context. So there are one or two outstanding issues we still need to discuss. So that is an expression you could use to identify or to emphasize there is unfinished business here. Okay, moving on to number 17. Again, we're getting towards the end of the negotiation now. You might say, okay, we need to paraphrase or to summarize or to recap the agreement. And then we have expressions such as, okay, as I understand, we have agreed, XXXXX. Have I got that right? Yeah, as I understand, we have agreed a certain point. Have I got that right? So you're asking the other person to confirm that you understand correctly what they propose to you or what you both have agreed. And just going back to the previous point, Jorge says, yeah, that's exactly right. It's a point that isn't settled yet when you say it's an outstanding issue. So, sometimes you talk about invoices which haven't been paid yet. Then that is payment outstanding, meaning the payment which has not yet been made. So looking at number 17, we have the expression, as I understand, we have agreed to sell 100 products at this price. Have I got that right? Is that correct? So you're doing two things there. You're paraphrasing the agreement as you understand it, and then you are asking the other person to confirm that what you have understood is correct. Really important. We don't do enough of that. Another example is simply to paraphrase what the other person said. So you want 100 units. Yeah? You want 100 units. Yeah, that's right. So rather than asking a direct question like, how many units do you want? You've heard the answer, but you want to check that you understand it correctly. And the last one is a slightly longer sentence, but very clear. I just want to summarize your position to make sure it's clear to me, which is very similar to saying, as I understand, we've agreed. Have I got that right? So I just want to summarize. Let me summarize just to check or to make sure it's clear to me. Yeah, that I understand it correctly. So again, that's a useful expression to use when we're talking about paraphrasing or summarizing agreement. Okay, moving on to the number 18. Again, and this could happen at any time during the negotiation, in fact, is that sometimes you want to encourage feedback or you want to encourage a response. So you make a proposal and say, I propose that we pay £10 per unit. You want to get their feedback. Now, you can stay silent or you can use a question. So I put 3 examples. First one, how does that sound to you? That meaning my proposal. How does that sound to you? Okay. Which sort of obliges them to respond directly to your proposal. Another thing you could say is that acceptable? Are you okay with that? So, are you okay with that is very informal, but is okay to use. Is that acceptable? Slightly more formal. And this one, you will notice that those two, is that acceptable? And are you okay with that? The answer is either yes or no. In this case, this one is a little different. How does that sound to you? You could also say, how do you feel about that? What do you think of that? Now, this is a different kind of question. This is an open question. So in that case, you're asking them not just to say yes or no, but to give you their feedback on their instincts, their feeling, their opinions, their thoughts about your proposal. Okay, moving on to number 19, the penultimate one. And this is what I call presenting an alternative solution. And quite simply, somebody makes a proposal to you. It's not really acceptable to you, but instead of saying that's not acceptable, you could say, I have a counter proposal. I have a counter proposal. Okay, so this means a proposal which is in opposition to yours, but which you might accept. I mean, you could say proposal, or you could also say a counter offer. Yeah, I have a counter offer. Okay, which is a perfectly acceptable way of indicating to the other person, the other party, that you're going to present something which may be the best possible alternative to what the best case scenario is. And finally, what I've put for the last one is, and this is not the end of the negotiation, but at some point during the negotiation, you may want to talk to somebody else. You may need to make a quick phone call. You may need to speak to your colleague in private. So remember expressions, polite expressions such as, do you mind if we take a short break? Do you mind if we take a short break? So that's always useful. Or another alternative, could I have a moment to consult with my colleague? Could I have a moment to consult with my colleague? So there you are, 20 expressions or 20 sets of expressions which we could use in negotiations, which are appropriate pieces of language for negotiations. Now we have another quiz 2, and we're going to go through this very quickly because time is passing quite quickly, but let's have a look. Are you ready for this? All you have to do is decide on the correct word from the 4 options. So here we go. The first one is A. And A is, I have a proposal. Is it contra, opposed, counter, or opposite? I'll just have a drink of my tea while you're thinking about that. Is it contra, opposed, counter, or opposite? I'll give you 5 seconds. Let's see if somebody can get the answer in that time. Yeah, do you know the answer? Yes, the answer. London School. I know the answer, Olga. Oh, yes. Well done, Jorge. Yeah, that's right. A counter proposal. In fact, it's the one we've just seen. A counter proposal. Okay, what about B? Little trickier. It's the same word twice. Yeah, the same word twice. You my back, I'll yours. Is it cut, rub, catch, or scratch? Cut, rub, catch, or scratch? Which one is it? Okay, it's the same word twice. Okay, I'm going to give you the answer. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. You do me a favor, and I will do you a favor of equal value. Well done, Naima. Yes, you got it right. And Ali, you got it right. And Jorge, you got it right. I think you'll remember that expression, all of you. It's quite noticeable. C. I just want to your position to make sure it's clear. Okay, there are 4 options here. Is it summary, summarize, summate, or sum? I just want to your position to make sure it's clear. Summary, summarize, summate, or sum? Which one do you think it is? Okay, yeah, well done, Frank. You got scratch. Yes, Pallavi, well done. You got in there quick. It is, and Andrea as well. Summarize, well done. Good one. Right, let's move on to the next one. Where Naima, well done as well. Yes, Jorge, yeah, you're all getting in there quick. I'm very impressed. Okay, D. Let's look at D. We'll move on to the next one. We might be able to do that as you give us a discount. So, and is it is it long, far, good, or conditional? So the sentence is, we might be able to do that as you give us a discount. And it's long, far. Well done, Jorge. Yes, as long as. Yeah, okay. Naima, well done. Jorge, well done. Yeah, you're getting in there quick. You're all getting in there very fast this afternoon. Well impressed. Okay, Ali Abdi, well done. Frank, well done. Yeah, so as long as is a way of saying only with the condition that, etc. So as long as is a useful expression to have. And the final one is You want £120 per unit, and I'm prepared to pay 100. Why don't we say 110 and the difference? Is it cut, forget, split, or make? Cut, forget, split, or make? You want £120, I'll pay 100, so let's say 110 and the difference. And then we both have to share the pain, or we both make a sacrifice, an equal sacrifice. Naima, well done. Andrea, well done. Yeah, split the difference. Excellent. Jorge, getting in there. Yeah, let's split the difference. Yeah, that's good. Well done, Frank, as well. Okay. And that's it, really. I mean, those are that's the quiz. I think pretty much everyone got all of those right. The only thing I would say, just as a quick way of finishing here, is that finally what we normally do at the end of a negotiation, because it's going to be a successful negotiation, is we celebrate agreement. So we could say, I'm pleased, I'm delighted, I'm very happy we have reached an agreement, come to an agreement, reached a deal. I'm really happy about that. Yeah, very happy. And of course, you can, if they are visiting you in your offices, you could say, I would like to invite you to a favorite restaurant of mine. Shall we meet later this evening? So that's a very elegant way of finishing off what has been a very successful day of business, quite honestly. So that basically is the end of my talk. I hope you've enjoyed it, and thank you very, very much for your active participation. Really, really good. Good to see you so involved in that. Plenty of people involved. That's excellent. So back to you, Olga.
Thank you very much, John, for this fantastic live stream and lots of very interesting expressions, including some expressions that some of our viewers said that they haven't yet heard. Like, for example, I'll scratch your back and expressions like this. And it was also very interesting to see how grammar is important when negotiating as well, with different conditionals.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I would like to say thank you very much, everyone who participated in the quizzes and for your active participation and answers. It's great to know that you really enjoyed it, and we've got a lot of positive feedback in the live chat. So I would like to say to our viewers, if you have any questions to John, please share them in the live chat, and we'll try to answer them. And meanwhile, John, could you tell us a little bit more about how we help clients to build and practice negotiation skills in English in our classes?
Yeah, of course, Olga. I mean, I've run a lot of classes where we've specialized in negotiation because it's something that a lot of our business English course participants need to do. I would say there are 4 areas. First of all, we often discuss and look at examples of the experience of the course participants themselves. You know, what have they done from their experience? What kind of qualities do they think is required? And that produces quite a lot of interesting vocabulary. Then we can look at, as you mentioned, the grammatical aspect of it, the things that we need to do to make suggestions, for example, language and structure. How do we use the conditional correctly? What is the difference between using the first conditional and the second conditional in terms of the certainty of your offer? And then we can run a simulated role play. So we'll split the class in 2 and say you're going to work in pairs with another person and you're going to try and reach an agreement. So if you have a class of 6 people, you will have 3 different negotiations going on at the same time. And it's always very interesting and quite entertaining at the end to compare what the result of the negotiation has been and to kind of do a debrief or feedback. Now, obviously, I do the feedback on language use, but also they can feedback on their own performance in the negotiation. And it's always a very interesting and often enjoyable and entertaining part of the class. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, John. It's really good to know that our course participants can really use the skills and advice from our trainers, but also can practice their negotiation skills with fellow class participants from completely different countries as well, which is quite often the case when it comes to negotiating internationally.
I think there is a question actually from Naima, which says, how are British people in negotiating? Well, that's quite a good question. I mean, British people, they tend to use humor quite a lot, which can be a little bit unnerving. They, generally speaking, I would say, are pretty good at negotiating. They're pretty diplomatic, as English is the language of diplomacy. So English people can tend to use their own language as a weapon almost, or as a tool to help them get an advantage. But normally I would say they're it's not too difficult to reach an agreement with an English person if you use the same kind of diplomatic language. I think politeness is an important aspect there. Olga.
Great, thank you, John. And we've got another question from Pallavi about improving business English vocabulary, I guess, or vocabulary in general.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of improving vocabulary in general, I would say, the best way is practicing, is activating that vocabulary. I mean, we all have a very big passive vocabulary. I am a Spanish speaker, for example, and I have a big vocabulary which is passive in Spanish. My active vocabulary, I really have to work on it. I have to practice it. I have to, in some cases, memorize it. Now, if you're working in a particular functional area in business, let's say you're working in human resources, lots of vocabulary about human resources. And there are several apps out there which allow you to enter vocabulary terms and create your own kind of personalized dictionary, and also it allows you to test yourself on this vocabulary. So I think nowadays with the internet and with apps, phone apps, I think the learner can take a much more active role in their own learning and development of vocabulary, a much more systematic way of learning vocabulary. So you have to decide on which words you want to make active, which words and expressions do you want to use rather than just recognize when you're reading a text. Okay.
Great, thank you, John. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up. And I would like to say again, thank you everyone who joined us, our viewers, our alumni. Thank you, John, for this fantastic content, always very helpful and very, very useful. And if you'd like to continue practicing your English, including improving your vocabulary, you can always subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. We've got more videos coming up, and please don't hesitate to get in touch with us if you've got any questions about our business English training and English language training in general. You can find more information on our website, londonschool.com, and you can always contact us. Here's the email, clients@londonschool.com, and we'll be happy to answer any of your questions. On this note, we wish everyone a really good festive break, and we hope to see you soon.
Yeah, and thank you everybody for participating. And Olga, can I just show them my jumper? Because Father Christmas also says Happy Christmas. Well, no, not Happy Christmas for everyone. Happy festive period to everyone. I put this jumper on especially for today. So thanks everybody. Have a good holiday period.
Great. Thank you. And bye-bye.
Bye-bye.